Hi folks, this is Rose from In Rose's Garden, and today we're going to make a really fun and interesting pair of earrings using Jessie James Bead's Red Queen and some of the Gold Feeling Rosy, as well as a lot of wire. So these are going to be a little different. I'm going to make a hoop and hook everything onto it. Now we're going to make this hoop like the Little Orbits link, but we're going to make it much bigger. Now I'm going to make these here, so you'll see how to make them, but if you want to get a more detailed way of how to make the Little Orbits, there is a video in my channel's library on making the missing link Little Orbit links. And this is what this is. We're just going to make a much bigger one. So let's turn down and we'll get started. Okay, I've already got what down here on the table what I'm going to need. We're going to use this the handle end of the of your wire wrapping mandrel to wrap a link, a round link like this. I've already got one made, but I have another piece out to make the other one. This is 14 gauge wire, by the way, and it is about 4.5 inches long. Then I also have 4 pieces of square bare copper wire in 21 gauge in 6-inch lengths. So we're going to bend this around. This is exactly the same size as the end of our mandrel, a little bigger actually. I'm going to have to watch that when we make this one, because we don't want it to be not the same size. So anyway, so we're just going to take this and we're just going to wrap it around our mandrel, and they should meet on this side. And we want to push those ends down as much as possible. Now that's going to be difficult because this is 14 gauge and it does not want to bend that far down. But that's all right, because as you can see, this is the size we want, or the size I want, and those wires are already bigger than I want right there. So let's roll this one down to here. And we'll cut this one right here. So now, since this is 14 gauge, you want either some cutters you've already damaged, which are these, or your memory wire cutters, so that you can get, oh, I made a notch. Make sure you watch which side you're going to with your cutters there. Okay, now we want to push this down. Oops, I pushed too far. It wants to go down into shape. Now let's see if they're about the same size. Okay, I'm thinking that looks pretty good. And we are going to disguise them when we put the wire on anyway. So after we do this, we're going to flatten this with our chasing hammer. And we'll probably have to bring our circles back together after we do that. But first, let's go look at the other things we're going to make. So we've got our 2 rings made, which we need to flatten. That's with about 4.5 inches of wire wrapped around the mandrel. We have 4 6-inch pieces of 21 gauge bare copper square wire. I have some rings here. These are chainmail rings in the 18 gauge size. I have 15 per side out of the Red Queen. Actually, well, here's our wire, our head pins. Our 2 Feeling Rosy beads, our beads from out of Red Queen and some spacers that I got. I think the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to wrap these up, and then we'll set them aside. So, of course, in order to wrap them up, we wish to get our pin. And for the middle one, we're going to put in a little spacer down on the bottom, because these have some pretty good size holes, and we do not want our beads to just fall right through. And then we're going to, on this side, we'll have a red bead, spacer, this black faceted bead here, another spacer, and this tiny red bead. So there's one. So we need to wrap that up. So take your pliers and give it a 90-degree bend. And then I always use my bell making pliers to make my loops. I usually use the smallest. I'm going to use the second to the smallest for these. I want to make sure I have plenty of room for dropping over the bar. So bring it around. Make sure she's in a lollipop shape, as it is. Take our pliers and hold here. I'm right dominant, so I try to move this over into this hand, and then make your wraps. Now we're going to have one like this on either side. Need to trim that. And tuck it in. And then for the other beads on this side, the other two dangles, we're going to put on this big black bead here, one of these little spacers, and the red bead. And then we'll do the same with it, just wrap her up. Now for each side, I'm going to have two of these black and red ones, and one of the one with the Feeling Rosy bead on it. Oops, not go throwing it. Trim her off and tuck her in. Oop, come on, baby, tuck. And this rolled a little bit while I was trying to tuck it. You'll notice it turned some on itself. So we want to bring that back over here. There we go. Now we need one more of these for this side, and two and the Feeling Rosy one for the other side. So all of these beads, other than the Feeling Rosy and the spacers, are from the Red Queen Jessie James Beads Mini Mix. They have some really pretty black and red beads in the set. and tuck. Now there is the beads for one side, so let's get the other side done now. And of course those are just the same as the original side. Now frankly, if you wanted to, you could just put this portion on 8-year wire and it would make a really pretty earring. Needless to say, the ones we are going to make are going to be some shoulder dusters. Oops, we're trying to slide out of our plier there. Now I can hear some people saying, how are you going to put those on? Because you don't have enough jump rings. You only got 4 little jump rings out here. And that's for putting on the ear wires on. So how are you going to put these on? Well, we will show you that in just a minute. So the next thing we want to do is get out our chasing hammer and our block. Here's our block, and I warn you, this is going to get loud. And here's our chasing hammer. And what we want to do is flatten these rings out quite a bit, and they'll probably pull apart. And then we're going to give them a little texture. When you're doing this, do try not to hammer your fingers. It hurts. Flip it over, hit some on the other side here. Now we're going to turn it and give it some texture. As you can see, it's way going out of shape, and that's all right. We're going to fix that after we finish up what we're doing here. Now we'll turn it over and do the other side. Now we're going to take our fingers and our mandrel down on here, bring it as round as we can, of course, and then we're going to have to spread her out so she's the proper shape that we want her to be. As you can see, this side is up higher than the other. It's bowed some, so we're going to have to work that. As you can see, it's got a loop here that because it wrapped out that way. Okay, so we're going to have to pull this down somewhat. And this is not rounded anymore, so we're going to have to try and round it some. Bring it back up. And now it's about in the right place. So this one is now textured and hammered. So let's do the other one. As you can see, it's now bigger too, a little bit. And if you didn't want it to be, you could always trim it down and bend it around a little more. But I warn you, it's hard to bend now because this is now been very work hardened. So here goes number 2. Okay, I think this is good. So let's just work this back into shape. See that this one curled over that way a bit. See, so we're going to take our pliers and straighten this up and see if it comes in better then. Oh yeah, that's almost perfect right there. So let's see how close it is to the other one. Looks like one might be a teeny touch rounder than the other, but it's close enough, and we are going to be doing something next to it. So the next thing we want to do is to twist our square wires. Have a pin twist, this works easiest, which I do have one, but you can do this with just 2 pair of pliers by just taking hold of one side and then taking hold of the other. And I like to get this as straight as possible when I'm doing this because it's going to be tricky. So take hold, then take hold of the other side and just twist. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to, especially since with doing it with just the 2 pliers, it's sort of tricky. So I'm going to get my pin twist and do it. You can do this just straight wire or just the square wire. You don't need to have the twist in it. Or you can use the store-bought twisted wire that you can buy that's already twisted. Okay, I've got my pin twist. You put your wire in this end right here. Come on, baby. Push this up and it holds it here. And then you can just take hold of it, the wire with one side, and it's much easier to twist this little piece as it is to twist your pliers. And there is one of our pieces twisted. And now I'm going to twist the others. So you can see how much faster that went than when I was trying to do it with 2 pliers. You can do it with 2 pliers, obviously. I've done it before. But it's much easier if one of them is a little more stationary. And you could do this by using a vise, putting one side in a vise, or any kind of clamp, just something to hold one end steady while you twist the other end. As you can see, I'm using the pliers as the steady side and the pin twist as the twisted side. When you're doing this, when you're doing a wire racked cabochon, you've already got it stabilized, so you don't need to have a second pair of pliers or a twist because you've already got it stabilized on one side. All you have to have is one pair of pliers or your pin twist. Like I say now, if I was using pliers, I would be holding just like this on the other side and then just taking the second set of pliers and holding it to and doing the twist with it. So now our next step is to wrap one of these wires around the one side of our ring. So that's pretty simple, just like you would do any wire wrap. Go opposite of the break over here, go about the middle, and start a wire wrap. Now I will tell you that if you haven't twisted it, these are easier to wrap because the twist has hardened your wire to a degree, making it be a little bit harder to wrap it. Now I started in the middle because that way I've got it pretty much centralized, sorry. And then I will wrap this portion. Then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to start wrapping the other side. And then I can stop when I have about the same amount of wraps on this side as I do on the other side. And it keeps it pretty much in the center of our link here. Oops, I got that wrapped over the top of itself. We don't want that. So we bring that back up. And as you can see, my tail now is about the same length. So if I've got enough wraps to make me happy, I don't like the way that one looks. It looks like it kinked up a little bit there. So let's see if we can get that fixed a little better. And if you have to, yes, use your pliers. Maybe we'll give it one more wrap on it, at least on either side. Maybe even two, we'll see. I think that looks pretty good. So we bring these around to the back, get our clippers out, trim these off. Excuse me, and tuck it in. Now I'm going to take my pliers and I am going to squish along here. To flatten this out a little some. Now we've got this one side finished. But we're not finished with our earring yet, of course, because we still need to, let me see if I can tighten these loops up a little bit here. That's a little better. So now we're going to need to do the other side. So we've got a wire here, opposite the opening, about halfway up. And start wrapping. Now, as you can see with the other one, I just poked it through. With this one, it's actually being more cooperative and going through the opening there. which you can do easily. Okay, now let's start with the other side. It looks like we could use, oh, maybe one more up here. And that looks pretty good. So let's squish her down some. And trim these off. Tuck it in. Now, if you're concerned with wanting these more flat, one thing is don't twist them. You can take your flat nose pliers and also squish down along your bar here, like so. And now that we have the one side done, our next step is we're going to put these pieces on. So we're going to want to open these up sort of like you would a jump ring. Just push it to the side. And we're going to put these, they're chainmail links, we're going to put 3, then one of the black ones. And now you can see why I made that bigger loop. 3 of these. Again. The Feeling Rosy. Three more of these jump rings. The other black one. And 3 more jump rings. And those will hang down like this when we have everything on there. So now we can do one of two things. We can either put our little oval jump ring up here on the top for when we go to put our ear wire on, which as you can see I just did. And after that we now need to wrap the other side of this loop. But let's put the stuff on the other earring and then we'll do that. And I think I'm going to take these back off since I have some more closed rings here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to put some more between these here to give it some more spacing. So let's just pull these off. Oops. We've got 3 in there. We're going to put 4 and 5. Put the Feeling Rosy back on. And then put 5. And 3 more. And we'll put the little oval jump ring going the other direction. And now let's fix the other side here and put the extra on it as well. Okay. And the last step is now we're going to wrap this, as we did this side, going over the top of this closure so that we can lock this link up in place. To do the other side now, just like this original side. And what you want to do is take your wire like you did originally, bring it up here, but a little less than medium or in the middle on this side here, on one side of it anyway, and wrap some wraps around above the split. Now you can see I got that one way away from its buddy, so we're going to bring it over here. But we want it to come a little closer to the break because we're going to start working the break here. So now we want to hold this in place as best we can and start with the other wire coming around. Now we're going to be right there. Now we're right there at the break, and we don't want it to let it slide out of there. We want to keep it, nope, see, it just slid. You want to keep it in as close as you can here while you bring it around. And sometimes, if you've already got these loops made on this one side, you can push them down over it so that it's already there, just like I just did, I think. Yep. So bring her around. Now if you can, you want to push these together here. And I may have wrapped too many wraps to get it my pliers in good. There we go. And it looks like, which side is front? This side is. So we're at the, looking good here in the front. Let's see how much we need. I think we're doing good still. And we're probably almost there. Let's see. And I think that looks pretty good. So let's see if we can push this up a little bit more so we don't have as much gappy. And that looks pretty good. Maybe one more round just to be on the safe side. So now we trim our wires and push her all down in place. Get our flat nose and swoosh, swoosh. There she goes. There's where our connection is. See that little bump right there? We can even that out a little bit. And there we go. Our earring side is finished. So other wire just the same. Go up and do a few wraps on this side, other side first. Before you come down to tension spot. Oh, I overwrapped. Okay. Now we're a little farther up there than I want to be, so let's slide her down some. Now we're going to wrap around here. And we're coming to the opening, so we need to get as close as we can get to the one side and then wrap her up into here, trying to hold her in place as you wrap, which is easier said than done. So be careful of that. See, here's where the come together is. Oh, this one is a little pulled off that way either, so it's all right. It's this side. Oh, okay. You are messy, my darling. So, there we go. That's better. Trying to wrap over itself. Okay, I think that will work. So we'll just, let's see, this is the front, so we'll just trim these off and squish stuff down. Now you can also use your nylon jaw pliers for squishing this, or your flat ones. Either works. Like I said, the hardest part is that come together right there, and you'll probably always have a weird little gap because it doesn't really want to come together, but you need to bring that in so you don't lose all your stuff. Okay, I'm going to get my flat nose out and squish both sides down. And again on this side. Okay, now we just need to put our ear wires on. So in order to do that, this one I didn't lose my jump ring off of, but the other one did when I was trying to get that piece in place better. So we'll just open this one up and put it on the bar. Okay, now next step is just these teeny little jump rings to hook onto the ear wire. Otherwise they'd be going in the other direction that I wanted them to be. So we will take the little tinies, open them up, put them on the original wire here, and then onto our ear wire, checking to see which side is front and which side is back. This side is front, so we'll put this on through here. Now when you're using these really tiny jump rings, especially the oval ones, you need to make sure you have your pliers way down on this other end, because they need to have space, and if you've got them in the space, then it won't work. Now, there's our first one finished, and we'll put together the second one. Where'd you go, little guy? There you are. Checking to see which side was the front, and close her up. And there we go. Our earrings are finished. These are rather bohemian-like. So here's our earrings, all finished. And I hope you enjoyed the making of those. As I said, all these beads are from Red Queen, from Jessie James Beads, the mini mix, and these are the Gold Feeling Rosy. And these are all just chainmail rings. However, you could just use regular jump rings, especially if you had some closed jump rings. Those would be pretty down there also. So anyway, there's our earring. I would prefer it if our ear wire didn't slide around, but there's not really much you can do to stop that. So let's tip up and we'll look at them a little better. Okay, so there's our rather bohemian earring. And the other. So there's our pair. Those are pretty interesting looking, aren't they, with the hammered and the links and all different colors of metals. I think they turned out really cool looking. Like I said, I would have rather my wires had come together over our loops a little better, our breaks a little better, but they're all right. And I'd like it if the ear wire couldn't slide around, that it was immobile, but it works. I like them. And I hope you enjoyed making these too. It might have been easier to wrap the loops, especially around the break, if I had not twisted the square wire. The straight square wire might have worked a little easier. So that would be my suggestion. Just use regular square wire or even round wire. Round wire works fine, or half round. Anything to wrap around that and bring that break together. And of course you need to do it on the opposite side so you have the pattern down good. So anyway, I think they turned out pretty cool, and I hope you enjoyed them. We'll talk to you later. This has been Rose from In Rose's Garden.